Mum's just a regular doctor. The impression I get is that Mum is anything but a regular doctor. It's my pleasure to introduce to you an exceedingly accomplished and outstanding lady. Please make her welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very, very happy to be here. And every time I'm in such an event and the kids sing the tikva and all this wonderful crowd joins in, I cry. My kids know that I cry very easily, and once again I did it tonight. So this is our first visit to Australia, but I hope it's just the first of many because we just love it here. What I'll try to talk about today is Hadassah. But the theme is not Hadassah as a hospital, because you have here wonderful hospitals, and a hospital that is so far away. So there's lots of innovation, lots of research done, but we want to show you tonight, what an impact Hadassah and Israeli healthcare system has, not only on our own patients, but on our neighbors as well. But as a proud mother, I'll start with presenting our family. Amit is sitting here, my husband, and these are the Korach boys. These are the 4 boys that we are very proud of. Yoav, who is this one, who looks just exactly like my husband. I'm a surrogate mother. She's 18 and a half, and you know what happens when you're 18 in Israel. But instead of going directly to the army, he postponed the army in a year, and he's volunteering now in one of the southern towns of Israel in a low socioeconomic place, working with in a hostel of kids that were judged to be in that hostel. So that's what he's doing now, and next year he'll join the army, and I'll freak out. And it's okay when we were in the army, but when my son goes through the army, that's a different feeling. So I have 1 year to bring peace to the area. We're on our way, but we need to make it a bit quicker. So Hadassah. Hadassah, you saw the beautiful building where the dance was, and we talk about healing, research, teaching, but the theme of today is really not that. It's building bridges. It's breaking the ice. You know the heterogenic population of Israel. You walk in the corridors of Mount Scopus and you see secular Jews, ultra-Orthodox, Arabs, all together. Workers, patients. What we show in the hospitals, that coexistence works, that we can live together. And where would you see an ultra-Orthodox guy with an Arab and secular sit together next to a table? I have a second cousin of mine is an ultra-Orthodox. He has 15 kids, or even more because they don't count. No, they're not allowed to count because it's against Ayin Hara. And unfortunately, our kids don't even know them. So when we come to each other, usually during Shiva and stuff, but that's because there are walls, and everyone lives in his own community. So a hospital is a place where the ice breaks. And again, I'm not talking just about Hadassah. The war that is taking place in Syria. It's 2 hours from us. It's nothing. Think of what's happening 2 hours from here, and you live your own life as if everything is normal. And the Syrians, they're not our best friends. But currently, hundreds of patients are coming from Syria to be treated in Israeli hospitals. They're being treated mainly in Nahariya Medical Center and in Ziv Medical Center, which is in Tzfat. And this is a quote from the CEO of Nahariya Hospital. He says, think of what runs in the head of a Syrian who was transferred unconscious, wakes up after a few days and finds himself in a hospital of his greatest enemy, knowing that they saved his life. Dr. Masad Baroum himself is an Arab guy, very accomplished. And this is another quote of a patient. It says, in Syria, Israelis are seen as the enemy, worse than the devil. But what I see here is humanity and professionalism. I believe that someday we will have peace. My children will come to visit Israel, and you will come to Damascus. So that's just in the last period. And we're definitely in a crazy world, because at the same time, we are all prepared for a chemical warfare that might happen. And actually, in Mount Scopus, in the hospital that I ran, we had the drill of chemical warfare. And because it was next to all the events with Syria, I had 25 TV channels from all over the world came to see the drill. And actually, one of the Arab channels asked me, can you say that all the people of Israel are well protected? I said, I cannot say that. I can say that whoever will come to Hadassah will get great treatment. But we're still, so that once we're taking care of patients, at the same time, we live in a crazy world. And one of the things that we see when we walk in Melbourne is the peacefulness. Everything is calm. We don't have the hectic world that we live in, and it's wonderful. And I hope that not long from now, we'll have the same atmosphere. Genetics. In the Arab population, there's a very high percentage of marriages in families, between first cousins. The first cousins themselves are healthy. What happens, though, is that the large number of kids are born with rare genetic diseases that are unknown. And for many of them, the genes are not known, and then you're not able to do prenatal diagnosis before the next pregnancy. And this is a story of a Bedouin family which live in a tent not far from Jerusalem, near Ma'ale Adumim. See, the white are healthy, the mother and father are healthy, a 9-year-old is healthy, but all the rest of the two girls and one boy are sick. And this is how they look. Oops. Very large heads, and they have developmental delay. So at Hadassah, and they belong to the Palestinian Authority. They're not part of the Israeli authority. They don't have a compatibility. They're not insured by the Israelis. Hadassah learned about this family, and on our own expense, did a genetic analysis and found the gene. So the next time the parents would like to have a child, they will be able to have a healthy kid. Now that's huge. There was a story, it was a strange story, because they decided to do an MRI on one of them because they're all, this is part of a workup of the patients. They did the MRI and it was normal. And you look at the head, you obviously don't know that, you see that it's not supposed to be normal. And apparently the mother was asked to bring one of the children. She said, who should I bring? So they told her, whoever is easiest for you. So she brought the healthy child. Only in 2013, 11 new genes were discovered and published at Hadassah. And those are genes that cause diseases. So that's huge. And that's impacting way beyond. It's of course not, most of it's not affecting the Jewish population because these are rare diseases that are inherited genetically because of the marriages. But look what an impact this has on the world, on the Middle East. 3 weeks ago, I was the manager on Gala. I get a phone call from Ramallah of a 9-year-old previously healthy girl that woke up that morning, headache, vomiting, lost conscious. She was now ventilated and she was supposed to, and they asked her to be transferred to Hadassah. At the time, we didn't have a place in the PICU, in the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, but we said we'll manage. She came, that was her CT scan. You see all the white at the left part of the brain? That's a bleed. She was treated, operated on, and 2 weeks later, she was much, much better. As you know, after stroke, if the left part of your brain is hit, then the right part of the body is affected. And she is paretic, but she is alive and she'd be able to walk. One thing about medicine, and that's what we believe in, is that we share the same fortune. That's the destiny. We have to fight it together. And that's why medicine, and I'm repeating it, is the bridge to peace. Because a mother is a mother, no matter what religion she comes from. And no matter what the background is. We all pray for the same thing. Story of two 20-year-olds. One is an officer in an IDF, religious. The other is an Arab guy from Gaza. Both had lymphoma, were laying one next to the other in the hematology department. At one point, after doing all that they could, the guy Muhammad from Gaza was dying and he wanted to go back to Gaza. Wanted to go back to Gaza, he needed oxygen. Not easy, expensive. The social worker of the department went to her synagogue, told the story, and immediately she came back with the money. They bought the oxygen tank for him. Then he had to go back to Gaza, and with all the checkpoints it takes time, and he was very sick. So then the officer said, "Don't worry," called his soldiers, and he got so quickly between Hadassah to Gaza, thanks to his friend Hilda. So each one of them, after spending so much time together, in their sorrow, in their pain, know each other. And when you know, you don't hate. Jama is a 3-year-old who came to Hadassah. Again, his parents are first cousins. And he came, you see this cute kid? He came unconscious with no hope. He had a bone marrow transplantation at Hadassah from a brother of his who was a full match. He had his leg amputated due to the severe infection that he had. Look at him now with his new prosthesis, a happy kid. And he'll be good, he'll be healthy, because he has a new immune system. Dennis was 12 when he made Aliyah from Ukraine. He made Aliyah after he was sick. He was very sick. So it doesn't come up. He had a bone marrow transplant from a donor from Germany, unrelated. Now he's 18. After fighting for the ability to go to the army, he's joined the army. Now in Israel, when you're a lonely child, you're not, in order to go to be a fighter, to be a combat, in one of the combat units, you need your mother, your parents to sign a permission. Think how hard it is for a mother to sign and to take part of this thing, but that's the rule. He was a lonely child. He wanted to be a fighter. And his mother said, after what Israel and Hadassah did for us, we need to give back. And he's in the army. Pediatric hematology. So children cancer is rare. It's 1 every 7,000. And actually, that's the most dreadful thing that each parent can think of. Because all their kids were healthy. And as a pediatrician, I spent a long time in the pediatric hemato-oncology department. And all the kids were healthy until 2-3 weeks before. I remember used to coming back home and hugging the kids. They wouldn't know what I want from them. And thankfully, the survival rate today is high. It's over 80%. But is it everywhere? No, it's not. In most of the world, kids with cancer die. not in Australia, not in the US, not in Israel, not in Europe. But that's because of the capacity that the places have in order to treat these kids. Currently, statistically, there are 250 new kids with cancer in the Palestinian Authority every year. The average cost is $100,000. And the other thing is palliative care. Fatima was an 8-year-old with metastatic sarcoma, that's a bone cancer, and she was dying. And she had to choose whether to die at Hadassah with painkillers in a more comfortable situation or die back home with her family in the village where she won't have the palliative care. And she decided to go back home. And they tried to do it by telephone, change medications, but it's not the same. Because there's no capability for palliative care yet in the Palestinian Authority. So what is the solution? One is to transfer all Palestinian kids to Israel. Would be very expensive, and I'm not sure the Israeli hospitals can absorb all the numbers. The other is to treat them all in the Palestinian hospitals, which again is a problem because they're not equipped for all the treatments. And then the other solution is to create an independent capability for pediatric oncology in the Palestinian Authority. Capability is not just hospitals, not just physical buildings. It's not just equipment. It's physicians and nurses and blood bag and pharmacy and chemotherapy and all of that. So that's a whole thing. And the idea is really to do two things. One is to create a mechanism that will help pay for the treatment of those of the Palestinian kids that need to be treated at Hadassah. And other is to help build the ability and the capacity in the Palestinian Authority. And a lot of collaboration is already being done. You know that there's a cystic fibrosis center, there's one in Mount Scopus, and there's one in Gaza, with physicians who were trained at Hadassah, and they're in contact continuously. So, and there's Hadassah trained staff from Augusta Victoria, which is in the eastern part of Jerusalem. And for exactly that reason, it was the idea of Ron Finkel, an amazing Ron Finkel, and with Julian Wright, Professor Julian Wright from the Anglican Overseas Aid, with Hadassah, and with Izzat, who is the ambassador of Palestine to Australia, to launch this project, Project Rosanna. You'll see her later in the video. Rosanna was born when she fell from a 9-story building. God knows how she didn't die. But she obviously was injured badly, broke her pelvis, brain injury, internal organs were all a mess, and she survived. And look at her walking. And through the Rosanna project, we will be able to, on one hand, help build the capacity. On the other hand, Hadassah will be funded and will be reimbursed for all kids that are treated. And just to make things clear, currently, for many of the children, we are getting paid by the Palestinian Authority. But many, it's just too much money. They cannot afford it. And through this project, Rosanna, I had a very special experience. 3 weeks ago, Ron, Julian, myself, Professor Eitan Karen, went to Ramallah. Now Ron calls me and says, can you come? We got an invitation from Izzat to go to Ramallah. I said, that's nice, Ron, but Israelis don't go to Ramallah. Why? He said, because we're not allowed to go to Ramallah, And so I got I got all the permissions, and we went to Ramallah, which was pretty amazing. It was like going abroad, half an hour from home. So after passing the checkpoint, I haven't been in Ramallah, God knows, 30 years. It's a beautiful city, and we came to the Ministry of Health. I was dying to get a picture there, but I couldn't. We were sitting in a meeting with the Minister of Health, his deputy, us. At first it was very tense, and then it eased up. All were physicians, most of us were physicians, and we all share the same idea. We want a win-win situation. At the end, we even had a picture taken by them. Unfortunately, I didn't get the photo, and I probably will never get it. But this is what we feel, is this is a huge step forward. It's huge. Because the Palestinian Authority is saying, we want to work with the Israeli organization, with the partnership, and that's what made it possible. Because we do have collaborations, but something so official and formal would never have been able to take place without the support and the initiation of those Australians, the Hadassah, Anglican Church, and so forth. Another wonderful project that Hadassah Australia is supporting is the Jerusalem Crisis Intervention Center. It all started during the Intifada, during the second Intifada, where you remember the time when there were suicide bombers and explosions all over and all the time. It was insane. It was scary to get out of your house. It was scary to let the kids take the bus. And all of us were actually in a post-traumatic stress situation. And what Dr. Esti Galili and her team started, this is a beautiful, beautiful house on Ethiopia Road in downtown Jerusalem. On purpose, they didn't want to do it in the hospital because the hospital brings back memories. And it started there, and they're doing many, many things. If it's in crisis intervention, we have eating disorder clinic. We had, as he was telling me the other day, of a 16-year-old, very successful, very accomplished girl who had anorexia, and she got to less than 40 kilos, and they got her out of it, and now she's an officer in the army. Or a guy who had suicide thoughts, and slowly they treated him, and when they saw that it's not working, they admitted him in, and he's well. But unfortunately, why is it so needed? Because the mental system in Israel is still at a transit between it's the government responsibility and the HMO responsibility, and so it takes time to get to someone, and people don't really know how to deal with it. And 3 weeks ago, I got a text message from my second one. He says, a girl from my grade who used to be a classmate hanged herself. And I spoke, and apparently it was a daughter of a friend of mine, and she and I went to the funeral and to the shiva, and the mother said she was perfectly, and my son said she was always happy. I mean, that was so strange, totally not typical. So she had 2-3 days of down feelings. She had insoluble, she said that she had some issues which she could not solve. So that was the way of solving it. And she did make an appointment for a psychologist, but it was in a few days, but it was too late. And I'm thinking to myself, if only she would have been taken to this wonderful center, who's doing a marvelous job every day, this beautiful girl would still be with us. Now, the idea of Hadassah is really, as we said, Hadassah, and it's not just Hadassah, is to make them impact worldwide. Not just look at ourselves, but look at the community. Look at the community around us and far from us. And Esti Galili, with a post-traumatic stress disorder, after the tsunami happened, flew over to Sri Lanka to teach the people there, the team there, how to treat post-traumatic. Haiti, earthquake in Haiti, you all know, which was the first hospital to be up and running. It was the Israeli IDF field hospital. And Itzik Weiss, who's a friend of mine, he's the Surgeon General, he was supposed to come, but unfortunately he couldn't at the end. And the American hospitals, you know, they came with everything. But until they were fully prepared, they didn't open their gates. It was 2 days after the Israeli hospital was up, running, and saving lives. So that's what's Israel. It's way more than in one hospital in Jerusalem or another hospital there. It's a system, and it's a feeling that we have responsibility for the world. An orphanage in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. Professor Danny Gengilhard, who's an HIV expert, found that there is an orphanage of 450 kids, orphans, that they have the HIV and they lost their parents to HIV. And they didn't get treatment. And as you know, currently, HIV is a treatable disease. It became a chronic disease, not a fatal disease, but not in Ethiopia. Death rate was 25%. 25% of the kids passed away. And they just kept dying and dying and dying. So Daniel came, and again, the idea is to treat and to train the local staff, because it's not that Hadassah can take over or Israel can take over and do all the treatment, but the idea is to facilitate, to help build the capacity, exactly like the Rosanna project, the idea behind Rosanna. So you see all the medications and the kids waiting in line to get the medication. And this is a nun who used to be a radiologist, and here Professor Engelhout they're talking on how to treat the kids. And then they saw that the kids are sad. And no wonder they're sad, but so they started bringing medical clowns that we have at Hadassah. And those are from Hadassah, the medical clowns. And volunteers who came to be with the kids and hug them. And that's the name of the program, was ART, which was Antiretroviral Therapy, Art, Joy, and Love. One of the stories, he says, that with so many kids, go find the right shoes. So that's how the shoes are all collected, and then so each one takes whatever comes in handy. One of the things that there was a big holiday there, and Danny said to the nun, head of the orphanage, "What would you like as a present?" And she said, "Shoes." So he got new shoes for all the kids in the orphanage, and they were beyond themselves. This is just a cute picture of orphans in the orphanage. Bialo was very, very sick in Ethiopia. He's with HIV. He had to have a lobe from his lung taken out. He was flown to Hadassah, had the operation. Here he's after the surgery. And they asked him, "What would you like the most?" He said, "Bicycle." He got 2, which he took back with him to Ethiopia. And that's an amazing thing. From 25%, the death rate went to under 1%. So we see the impact is way, way, way beyond Jerusalem. And remember, the ART, the antiretroviral therapy, now it turned into art. And they did an art workshop with artists, for local artists, and this is Rachel. We'll see in her drawing in a minute. So this is something which really made the difference. And the nuns said, we knew how to take care of dying kids. We don't know how to raise healthy kids. And this is her drawing. I want to conclude with a huge present that you are giving us, the Healing Garden. In Mount Scopus, we have a center for chronic disease, a center for children with chronic diseases. We have a center in the center, we have a center for CF, kids. We have a Center for Down Syndrome, where all multidisciplinary team are coming and working. They come for one day, they see all the specialists, and get a holistic approach. And a few years ago, again, on with his ideas, and there's a healing garden in the Royal Children's, said, let's have a healing garden in Israel, at Hadassah. We found 1.5 acres, and it's a beautiful, and it came out, and it's a joint project between Hadassah, Australia, and the JNF. Many of you are involved in this amazing project, which is going to be, it's already beautiful, it's going to be stunning. The opening ceremony will be in June, and but it will be open before that, so whoever is in Israel, I really urge you and ask you to come, and I promise a VIP visit, tour of the hospital and the healing garden. And the kids will be able to go out of the center, there's a door out of the center as well, to be treated, to get their medications outside, to be treated, and it's a healing garden. It's a garden of health, tranquility, and peaceful. So, thank you. By thanking you so much for your support. And your support is so much needed. And I think now, even I hope a little more you can understand what impact your support has. It's way more than just buying another piece of equipment to my hospital, which I definitely need. But it's making an impact, and you're a part of it. Thank you.
Intensive care unit at Hadassah, Jerusalem cares for children in critical and life-threatening situations. Round-the-clock post-operative care is of dramatic, decisive importance, often making the difference between life and death.
This is a